Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Boltor here, and today I wanted to do a little bit of a discussion to give you all my feedback and my opinions and my predictions following the balance update that we just got. This is update 0.65, and it's the first, well, I think the second big balancing patch to come out. I believe it's the second balancing patch, but the biggest one they've done so far. So I wanted to jump right into it, give you guys what my predictions as to what the impact of all this will be. Also go over in a little bit more detail exactly what was changed about each card. Now first we're going to start off with probably my favorite change, even though it's not that big a deal. Griffin Ryder got changed to a 2-3 with speed 3 from a 3-2 with speed 2. I really like this change because now this card could see play. It probably still won't, because for 1 mana or for 1 level more, you get to play Protector of the Innocent, which is all around is just a better card. But the simple fact that they changed this means not only are they listening to the community, and there are people calling for this card to get changed, if only for the flavor of it, and 2, they're not afraid to kind of admit, well, this card sucks. Let's make it at least, viable. Let's make it at least good in a budget deck. So this card makes me very happy. Again, it's not really going to see a whole lot of competitive play, although someone's going to go out there and prove me wrong. But the simple fact that this change happened means that the devs are really listening to us, and that's rare in card games, especially in online games these days that are living, breathing games because of how much they grow and change. And the second one is Guardian of the Faithful. The stats and the level and the mana all stayed the same. The big difference is Guardian of the Faithful now only destroys up to 3 enemy creatures when they're attacking, instead of all the attacking creatures. Now, is this card still really good? Yeah. Is this card still going to see play? Yes. Is it still going to make stalemates in the board? Yeah, probably. Primarily because if you want to attack past Guardian of the Faithful, you're going to have to attack with creatures you don't mind dying. So you're not swinging with your Dreadknight, you're not swinging with your Red Dragon, you're not swinging with, say, Undead Hydra. You're not swinging with your big creatures, and you're giving the player who is controlling Guardian of the Faithful a chance to really, stabilize, regain some speed, so to speak. I had called for this card to be changed back in April, but I thought there should be like a mana requirement similar to Goblin Fireworker. You have to pay mana and sacrifice it to blow up an artifact. I thought maybe this one should have like 1 to 2 mana, then and sacrifice it to destroy all attacking creatures. That way you had to make the choice between using all of your mana on your turn or saving some of it for Guardian of the Faithful. But I'm pleasantly happy about the... Listen to me, I can't words. Happy about the change that they did make. Next we're going to move on to Wisdom, and first let's talk about the big one that happened that everyone is happy about, or some people aren't happy about. Electrostatic Storm. Now, everything about the mana and the level stayed the same. The big change here is that the Electrostatic Storm now has an upkeep. You have to give it energy for it to stay the way it is. Every turn it loses energy and deals less damage. The thing that I think a lot of people are overlooking about this change is that Electrostatic Storm still does what it needs to do. It's Wisdom's answer to aggressive swarm decks. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that it still hits for 3 the first zap, 2 the second zap, and 1 the last zap, even if you don't pay any energy into it. And what that does is it really helps kill Rage Rush, because Rage has a lot of cards that only have 2 and 1 health. So it still does what it needs to do, but what it's not going to do is sit there and completely dominate the field. You can still play around it, it just takes a little bit more thinking. And clearly, it's not impossible to keep Electrostatic Storm strong. It's not, and it's also possible to make it better than it was by giving it 4, 5, 6 energy, where it can zap a red dragon or an Antriel or a Karthos and completely dominate the board that way. You just have to build around it, which I think actually opens up more possibilities for the card than we had before. I mean, with this card, suddenly Astral Dive becomes a lot better. Not only is it a cantrip where you draw a card, but you're also helping feed your Electrostatic Storm. Energy-based Wisdom decks, I think, could be more of a thing now. And that's what I really like about this change. It's not a buff, it's not a nerf, it's kind of a sideways move, and that's fine, because we didn't need it to be completely gone. We didn't want it buffed, so the best thing to do is to move it sideways, so to speak. The next card that got changed was Lamp of Zephyr, and I'm kind of on the fence about this one. It's obvious it comes out a turn later, but it's still as strong as it was. It's still powerful. I said that maybe they should change it to either a 3/3/3 or a 4/3/2 2-speed. The simple fact that they changed this when they really said that they didn't think it was a problem, that Lamp wasn't the problem, that Storm was the problem, the simple fact that they even touched this card really goes to show that they are listening to us. And I think after the next competitive format, I think Lamp will get another change. So if you really hate this card, just hold on. I will put money on the fact that this card is getting changed in the future. And the last Wisdom card that was affected was Dust Titan, which before was the worst rare in the game. But now, it's actually really good, because it gives Wisdom that late game creature that they were lacking. In my Aspect Review Spellweaver 101 video, I said one of the major drawbacks to Wisdom was that they didn't have a big creature. Sure, they had the Spectral alright, but really it wasn't seeing any play. So, but I think Dust Titan just might do that, because he's a great top deck against decks that basically aren't Order, that don't have Ray of Righteousness. If you top deck Dust Titan with like 11, 12 mana, then wham, down he comes, hitting the table as a 10-10 or an 11-11 or such, and he can push himself through with his shock ability. So I think, sure, he's not like the most competitive card, but he's really, really good in the late game, and that's something, and as a standalone card, and that's something that Wisdom was really lacking up until now. So this is another one of my favorite changes to come out of this. Again, no one was saying Dust Titan needed to be buffed. No one was saying that this game was terrible because there was no Dust Titan in competitive play. But they still realized that this card was crap, and they said, well, let's make it not crap. So the next one that come to the change was Rage. And first off, I'm going to talk about the hero change. Jash Flamebringer, his change is now an enemy creature can't block this turn. Same mana cost, same cooldown, same level cost as his other one, which was ping something for 1 damage. An enemy creature can't block this turn. This is very, very befitting a Rage deck, and it's also very befitting a Rage Rush deck. Although, I think Rage Rush might actually be more suited switching to Zash the Annihilator, if only because that's more direct damage, and it really helps us kind of, wipe the board, so to speak, and it really helps you push through that extra damage. Also, I think Rage Rush might fall a little more into the late game now because of the changes that we'll discuss in a few minutes, including even playing a Singleton or maybe 2 Red Dragons, if only for their Fire Breath direct ability that can burn their opponent to do that extra bit of damage. And it's a 5/5 body with speed 3. That's just a prediction. I can't really say it's going to happen. But as for Flamebringer's ability, I'm actually really liking this ability. I'm really liking this change. His ping for 1 for every 3 turns was really underwhelming. I mean, yeah, it helps you finish off that one creature that one time, but really it wasn't getting you there. It wasn't enough damage, frequently enough to really get you to your victory. So this one helps you get past their big blocker that you obviously can't trade with because you Rage Rush. So I think this is going to help more than it's going to hurt. Now, here we go, creatures. The changes that did come to the creature side of Rage involves this guy, Flamebrain Goblin. Same stats, same everything. The only change is that he's now Speed 2 as opposed to Speed 3. Speed 2 makes him easier to block and means that you're probably keeping him back to give all your other goblins Swift, and probably only swinging with him when you can guarantee that he gets through for damage and doesn't die. And the other change is Boiling Blood. This is up to 2 mana from 1, and I think I'm agreeing with everyone where making it 2 mana might make it a little unplayable. Yeah. Because you're paying 2 mana for 2 attack on a creature that's probably just going to die. I think instead they should have made it 1 mana, Rage, and a colorless or aspectless level. That putting it on par with things like Tornado Outbreak and Path of Transcendence. I think that would have been the better way to go. But again, with this card nerfed, I'm standing by my statement of Rage Rush kind of moving towards the late game more and playing Red Dragon. Next, we move on to Corruption, and Corruption had a number of changes. Primarily, the one that everyone's talking about is the Succubus change. Now, all of her left side stats are the same level, same mana, same speed and everything. But now she only drains 3 life, so it's only a 6 life swing as opposed to an 8 life swing. This means that you have to play her 7 times to win without dealing any damage, as opposed to 5, which is much harder to do, even if you are playing a Reanimator deck designed to play her, kill her, and then bring her back, or bounce her and then play her again, you know, like the bounce deck I highlighted. I'm okay with this change. I know some people are saying 3 life is too less, or too low. It won't help you survive against Rage. It dies easily. It's too little. But then again, 4 was too high. 3 is too low. What are they gonna do? Make it 3.5 life? I'm fine with this change. I don't see that it needed to be altered any more than this. Next, we move on to Sanctum of the Void. Now, the big change here is this, the enemy hero sacrifices a creature, you no longer gain the 2 life, which a lot of people were complaining about was too close to the Dominion ability. And I have to agree with them. It was, I mean, I know I've said that it wasn't that big a deal because there are a lot of magic cards in black that do the same thing. Sacrifice your opponent sacrifices a creature, you gain life. But you never really played this for the life gain. The life gain was sure and nice, you know, they lost a creature and you gain 2 life. But Corruption goes side by side with Dominion a lot anyway. So now, really, this card wasn't really weakened. It was just kind of like Electrostatic Storm. It was just kind of moved sideways. I mean, clearly it does less, so it's weaker in that aspect. But it's still not. It's basically, it didn't get made unplayable. It's more or less just doesn't do as much. It still clears out your opponent's big creature that they spent all their mana playing to an empty board. It still forces your opponent to make tough decisions. It still gives you a huge momentum swing by forcing your opponent to get rid of a creature. So it's still good. Now, we're going to finish off Corruption here with the kind of the inconsequential changes, but the changes that are still worth mentioning. First, we've got Undead Hydra, which is now a 5/5 that costs 5 instead of a 6/6 that costs 4 in 2 levels. Oops. Now let me go back to it. Creatures. Alright, there we go. Sorry about that. I don't think I'll be able to edit that out because my editing software is being buggy. But so basically, it's got its cost increased and its power decreased, which makes it a little fairer, especially to those people who have played against, you know, the corruption AI and had this come down really early and just been like, well, now I'm screwed because I can't deal with it. I think this card, I mean, it's still possible for the Hydra to get huge, but there's really no difference between 5 and 6, considering the removal, the direct damage, except this does now die to Dragon's Breath. But other than that, I mean, the card wasn't really seeing competitive play, and it's not going to see competitive play now, but it is a nice change for newer players, especially ones that are grinding against the AI. Speaking of grinding against the AI, Dreadknight bumped to level 3 from level 2. Again, just comes down a turn later. It just comes down later in the game. It's harder to play, so it gives you more time to kind of play against it, but it still dominates the board while it's there. It's still a 6/6 that can choose how your opponent blocks, essentially, by forcing their one creature that has advantageous blocks to the back row so that they can't use it. And locks it down because forcing them to go from the support row to the front row takes a turn for them to get exhausted. So it really helps you lock down a creature that potentially is threatening to kill you. And now the last change is Dominion. And Dominion, first we're going to start out with the hero that got changed, which is Tempting Lure. Now this is one that everyone was calling for a change. Everyone wanted this card to be, or this hero to be nerfed. I'm not 100% on how I feel about this, primarily because I thought the only change that really needed to happen was you got one creature and the rest of the cards go to the bottom or get shuffled into the deck. You didn't. This seems a little much of a change. What it is now is you can pay any amount of mana and look at that many the top cards, depending on how much mana you played. You may put a creature among them under your control and put the rest shuffled on the bottom. So you lose the knowledge of what they're going to draw, but you also get to dig deeper into their deck for a possible creature. This makes it a lot stronger late game when you have a whole bunch of mana to burn, but I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it right now. It's still good. I mean, by the time paying the 5 mana that you're going to pay anyway for her ability still actually digs you further into the deck, into your opponent's deck this time around, because you had to pay 5 for her original ability and only get 4 cards. Now if you pay 5 mana with her current ability, you get actually 5 cards into their deck, and you get to take a creature among them. So you can kind of dig through their whole deck and just with enough mana and just be like, all right, I know they're playing Dominion control. I need a Lord Karthos. Let me dig real deep in their deck. There's Lord Karthos. Boom. It's less RNG based, less luck, which I like, but people could use it in the early game, and I think this might actually become better than Insatiable Soul for like more aggressive Dominion decks, because you could do it for 3 mana and still probably hit something. Next, a minor kind of a wording change on implants. Now, implants put weakness emblems at the start of the implanted creature's controller's turn. I believe before it was at the beginning of the implant owner's turn. What that does is, if control of the implanted creature should change, say, with Drela here, the weakness emblem happens on the turn of the creature or the player who owns that or controls that creature, and not the beginning of the person who originally played it. So that can change around some. That can change around some plans and such, but it's a very minor, more or less just a mechanic fixing change. It really doesn't have a whole lot of impact. Next, we've got, where is it? Overwhelming Forces. This used to let you draw cards equal to the disparity between the number of creatures on both sides of the board. Like, say, I had 3 creatures on the board and my opponent had 1. If I played this card, I would draw 2 cards since there was, I have 2 more creatures. This changes it to fit the flavor of the card a little bit more. You look at the top cards of your deck, where X is the number of the creatures the hero who has the most creatures controls. Put any number of creatures from them on the field and the rest go in the deck. So if you have a lot of creatures on board, it helps you, flood the board even more. If you're behind, it helps you catch up. I think this might be playable now as sort of a, well, I'm playing a Dominion-esque kind of aggro deck. I play a single copy of this. I'm out of steam. Well, let me draw this. Hey, look, my opponent's got a lot of creatures. Let me play this and potentially get back in the game. I'm not saying it's going to see a lot of play. I'm just saying, hey, maybe people might test this card out at least. And the last change we're going to discuss today is Tempest of Deceit. Now, this is a card I really wanted to be good when I first read it, because being able to look at your opponent's hand every turn is one of the most powerful abilities that can exist in a card game. The only problem is, as a 3/1, she died to everything. 1 damage is not hard to deal in this game. But now she's a 2/2. Now she's harder to kill. Now she's more likely to get pushed through for that damage. This is probably going to become a staple in control decks, or as, anti-control. Because nothing kills a control deck more than being able to look in their hand and strip the answer out of their hand, the one card that's going to screw you over. This is, in a sense, better than Mind Extortion, because you get to look at their hand. You don't get to just basically play it, and if they don't have a spell in their hand, then you're just kind of dead in the water. The Tempest of Deceit can hit so much more. It can hit Cataclysm. It can hit Assassinate. It can hit Ray of Righteousness. It can hit so much, and it's such a good card. Now it's actually playable, and I think this is the biggest change that they've made. I think this card is going to see significant play. Well, that's going to do it for me today, guys. Next week, we'll be getting back to the deck discussion videos. I already have a deck lined up. It's a deck I'm currently testing, and I've enjoyed it so far, so hopefully we'll have a lot of fun with that deck. Until next time, guys, may the cards rise to meet you, and bring good RNG to your enemies' enemies.